In all of Swan Global's 23 years of specialising in executive search, at board level, with C-suite executives, and with technical roles in the natural resources and engineering sectors, we have come across many remarkable companies and remarkable people. With our offices in the UK, North and South America, Asia and here in Australia, and meeting those many remarkable people, moving them from small companies to big companies and vice versa, we've been able to introduce many new capabilities to a wide spread of clients. The companies and the people are often operating in very difficult circumstances. One of the big ones is Rio Tinto, and the company earlier this year took a big decision to appoint a new chief executive, Jean-Sebastian Jacques. JS, as he's otherwise known, has a truly remarkable background. After completing his university degree in France, he moved to Indonesia to work in manufacturing for the cosmetics giant L'Oréal. Then it was back to Europe to make pipes and tools for the oil and gas sector. Quite a change. Then there was aluminium and steel making, finishing up as Group Strategy Manager at Tata Steel. And in 2011, a move to Rio Tinto. After less than 5 years, he has become Chief Executive at 44. It has been a truly meteoric rise for this man. Prior to his latest role at Rio, he was in charge of the company's copper interests, the big copper play being Oyu Tolgoi in Mongolia, which has required long and drawn-out negotiating with the Mongolian government. And now we will see a big mind at work on big matters across the big Rio Tinto. We can expect further strengthening of so many aspects of Rio Tinto's activities. And I see the investment community is confident about the future for Rio Tinto and its shareholders under JS. After attending the last 2 AFL Grand Finals at the MCG and under Chris Lynch's good coaching on rugby and AFL, now we see JS at Etihad Stadium for his debut visit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome JS.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to recognize the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and offer my respect to their elders, both past and present. I would like to note Sir Avi Parbo, Lee Clifford, and Martin Ferguson, who are all in this room, for their contribution to our industry. All of you are giants in our sector. And Lee, I'm not just saying that so I can get a seat on one of your planes tonight when I have to go back to Sydney. It's great to be here with you today to share some thoughts on our industry and the important role Australia will play in keeping it strong and relevant in the decades to come. There is no doubt we live in a rapidly changing world. Economies are shifting, our environment is changing, politics is more fragmented, and technology is transforming the rules of the game. Our industry has a key role to play in meeting some of the world's challenges and in turn to position ourselves as part of the solution and not part of the problem. Even so, as an industry, we do face some challenges, and we must challenge ourselves to look for innovative solutions to old industry problems on things like safety, the environment, and last but not least, diversity and inclusion, and last but not least, explaining how we contribute to modern life. This will require a reset in our thinking our behaviors, and many, many of our long-held assumptions. I believe that Australia has a vital role to play. I would go as far as saying that Australia should raise its ambition, as it has a unique opportunity to become the epicenter of the global mining industry. But more on this later on. As mentioned, the last time I was in Melbourne was with Chris Lynch at the AFL Grand Final. I'm not going to say too much about it today. However, something very important I've been told. All you need to know that I was not wearing a red and white scarf. I've been told that that should hopefully guarantee me a safe exit from this building. We'll see if it happens. And even a seat to go back to Sydney tonight, depending, of course, on what I have to say next. On a more serious note, in preparation for today, I read the first MMC speech given by our patron, Sir Harvey Parbo, 15 years ago. Many of the themes covered them still apply. I did note his views that the industry, his quote, has not been good at explaining itself to the public. And then his comments were, when it comes to public policy, what does not make sense often has an excellent chance of occurring. It's fair to say that it's good to see that some things never change. Let's be clear, now is not the forum to talk about silly policy positions. You can ask the question at the end if you want. But it strikes me that 15 years on, the industry has not found a way to fully connect with the society. Actually, I think this is probably true for most big businesses. I see in Australia, and also in the US, Canada, and the UK, that business is not always painted in the most positive light. The jobs we create, the tax we pay, or the billions we invest are being missed in the discussion. For the mining sector, we have an opportunity to tell our story in a new way, to reinvent ourselves, to attract the next generation of talented youngsters. I think it's on table 46 from memory. We must stop the short-term thinking. We need to look 10 years ahead and consistently deliver value through all cycles. Our aim must be to make a material difference to our communities and the world more broadly. With this in mind, I'm going to argue today that mining is one of the most vital industries on the planet. Now, of course, I'm speaking before a supportive audience, and I would expect some backing here. I feel much better now. But let's be clear, I mean, on the serious note here is, but you wouldn't get a lot of support for this idea if you spoke to the people on the street. And I think it is a real shame. So what is more important than mining? I mean, if you were to ask the general public, most people would choose self-driving cars, solar energy, and if you were my teenage daughters, smartphone technology, their best friend, something like that. But the fact is, none of those options would be possible without mining. Therefore, if mining is one of the world's most important industries, it is no accident that Australia is at the heart, both past and future. It is a nation with absolutely beautiful minerals and energy resources, but also a population of smart, innovative people, a large proportion of which have mining in their blood and represent the pioneering spirit and grit that is so much part of our industry. At Rio Tinto, we can find Aussies all across our business, and it's not uncommon to see Vegemite in our offices from Africa to Mongolia to London or to Canada. Australians are great advocates for the industry and for Australia. So how can Australia make more and not less of its world-beating mining heritage, from excellence in operations and talent to industry-leading technology and mining financial expertise. How can Australia position itself as the backbone of the global mining industry? I fundamentally believe Australia has a unique opportunity it should not waste. As the world becomes more protectionist, countries look to shut their borders and turn inwards, Australia could buck the trend, open its door, open its heart to the mining industry of the future. I believe there are three key areas where Australia could make the most of its obvious strength. The first one, it's positioning itself as the financial center for mining. The financial center for mining. The opportunity there is for Australia to get ground on London and beat Vancouver as the place the industry wants to put its dollars and its best people. The uncertainty of Brexit in the UK and the recent election of Donald Trump in the US makes now the perfect time for Australia to grab the initiative. As an example, Australia could form alliances and partnerships with financial markets in Singapore and Hong Kong. But if Australia wants to do this, it must become more attractive as an investment destination for the business, which means stable policy, more competitive tax settings, and incentive for companies to set up shop and stay. The simple truth is that Australia remains one of the most expensive places for us to do business. Take the corporate tax, for example. I'm sure everybody in the room, well, I hope so, knows the corporate tax here is around 30%, one of the highest in the developed world. Prime Minister May in the UK is talking about cutting the UK corporate tax rate to a record low of 15% or below. And of course, not to be out-Trumped, Mr. Trump has talked ahead of the US election about the 15% tax rate in the US as well. So now, come on. I know you Aussies are competitive in cricket, in rugby. Okay, I'll move on here. Why not about corporate tax rate as well? Much more interesting. The second area of opportunity for Australia is to position itself in a more obvious way as the global center of mining technology and operational excellence. You could say this is already the case, but is Australia really making the most of it? Australia could and should be the global maker of mining technology in the same way the US is on internet, smartphones, software, and space exploration. Australia could achieve something similar in the mining technology, but we need to start now. We need to harness a unified effort of business, government, investment capital, and universities. It might take 10 years, but that's okay if we want to keep our industry strong. On a very smaller scale, at Rio, we are building a technical excellence center in Brisbane to support our global operations. This center will drive the development of our underground mine in Mongolia, and it is a great example of Australian know-how exported globally. I've heard the Australian Prime Minister talk of what he called the innovation economy. In my view, he's throwing down a challenge to the business community to turn the talk into action. Of course, innovation is not just about high-tech new industries. Miners innovate as well. And it's not only about big bang stuff. Innovation can be about day-to-day improvement and productivity. At Rio, we see productivity as the key driver of margin performance for the industry in the years to come. According to McKinsey, the mining industry was 28% more productive 10 years ago. And Australia now lags many competitors in terms of productivity. So, how do we work together to make the mining industry more productive and in turn boost Australia's productivity? Productivity is now a permanent agenda item for the Rio Tinto Exco meetings. It is great to see the Australian government has firmly put it at the heart of their discussion around the cabinet table. And it's great to hear that the Treasurer, Scott Morrison, has asked the Productivity Commission to review Australia's performance in this area every 5 years. It shows the government understands the need to look at this as a long-term issue. Survey research by the Mineral Council of Australia has pointed the government in the right direction at the policy level. Approval processes, workplace relations framework, and tax and royalties are areas for improvement. Here, we need to benchmark ourselves in Australia, not just against the past, but against our international competitors as well. The third area of opportunity is all about Australia taking the lead, once again, on mining industry partnership. In the post-war era, the Australian government made a big and brave bet. It opened up the Pilbara in Western Australia to the world. It was an inflection point for the nation and also for Rio Tinto and many other mining companies. The Pilbara is respected across the mining industry as being world-class, not just because of its geology, but through the quality of its innovative technology, its partners, its people. A few months ago, we held our Iron Ore 50 celebration in Perth. We want to recognize the pioneering spirit of the many of thousands of people and the many nations that help create our iron ore business, which is as much Australia's success story as Rio Tinto's. It all looks so simple now, but in the early 1960s, Australia did not have the financial capacity to build the mines or the markets to buy the product. It required finance from a consortium of North American banks and more than 40 nations from around the world to build the rail, the ports, and the mines. And it was all done in just over 18 months, an amazing achievement. New relationships were made, for example, with Japan. The offtake agreement, 65 million tonnes over 16 years, were the largest an Australian company had ever written. It also led to our pioneering Chinese joint venture, China in 1987, which brought a new era of Australia-China cooperation and growth. Growth that has underpinned China's transformation and created many economic opportunities for Australia. It is clear that forming new partnerships can deliver significant value, and indeed, sometimes your customer can be your best equity partners. Australia could, once again, be at the forefront of these types of new partnership opportunities. In closing, our industry needs to tell its story with confidence and far more widely. We should aim to make sure the general public understand that our environment, plus our cars, smartphones, and most of our other material possessions, all came out of a mine. A successful industry 10 years on will have made great strides toward that. The messages sent in recent times through the political processes, for example, in the US or in the UK, are important for industry to note. We need to invest in our story, listen to our communities, and engage more deeply in conversation to explain the benefits of what we do. For us, it falls to each generation of miners to argue the case for our industry, and maybe we are at that point again. Rather than argue our case, I think advocate would be a better term to call for a spirit of cooperation to make the most of Australia's opportunities. The world needs a strong, safer, prosperous, innovative Australian resource industry. We stand ready and will continue to play our part. I hope that in 10 years down the road, Rio Tinto Chief Executive will address this group, and maybe she will look back on my words and say, he really didn't have a clue. He really didn't have a clue. The industry is much, much more advanced than he predicted. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, JS. I'll just slip in there. Members and guests, it's time for some questions from the floor. If you do have a question, could you please stand so that we can probably see you and state your name and affiliation. Ian, have you got one down here, please?
Brian Phillips, JS, you talked about this becoming a very expensive country to do business, but in the past you've described the proposal to impose an extra $5 per tonne tax on iron ore as your number one, or as the number one global crisis. Why are you so concerned about just another $5 a tonne on your iron ore?
I thought we were not supposed to talk about silly policies here. I'm going to repeat what I said on this one is the $5 per tonne proposal by the nationals in WA is not only an issue for Rio or BHP. I truly believe it's an issue for WA mining and for Australia. And the reason why I'm saying that is very simple. We all know here that mining is a global business. With this potential new tax, we could end up in a situation where Australia is the most taxed place globally. This is as simple as that. And when I read in the press or hear some of the comments saying that we, Rio or BHP, pay only 20 cents per tonne of tax in WA, where in fact we pay $19 per tonne, I think we have a small problem. So if you step back, and if we end up in a situation where we are the mostly taxed country in terms of mining, guess who's going to win? I can tell you, it's going to be very simple. It's going to be Brazil. Nothing wrong with Brazil per se, but that's what it is about. It's not about Rio or BHP paying more taxes here. It's about the long-term competitiveness of WA, Australia. And that's why I'm saying that's something that we should fight, and we'll continue the fight, because it's not about Rio trying to protect his profits here. It's really about the long-term competitiveness of WA and Australia. So we'll continue the fight, but thanks for asking the question.
JS, we have a question over here.
JS, William Morgan, Intrinsic Investment Management. JS, I'd be interested in your comments on China credit and how long a country where there is an absence of price signalling can maintain a credit system that effectively pays for buying our iron ore.
So it's fair to say that the growth in China was slightly better than what we expected this year, and it's primarily fueled by additional credit. I don't want to say that a bubble is being built in China, but it's fair to say that the gearing or the debt level is increasing pretty quickly. How long can it last? Hard to say, but what I can tell you for a fact is, and we're spending a lot of time in China, because China is very important for us as an industry, but as Rio Tinto as well. I've got no doubts that in the coming 2 years, China will continue to grow, and we will continue to buy our minerals. And there are many reasons for that. One of them is, there is a big leadership conference end of next year, and I'm happy to mortgage my house, my small house in London, and tell you they're going to meet all their targets in the meantime. It's as simple as that. It is clear that China continues to invest in their so-called old economy. How long can it last? Hard to say, but as I said, no real concern in the short term. But there is another point which is very important. People are very concerned about the so-called debt level in China. But if you step back and you think about the US, or if you think back about Europe, how do you feel about if we were to remove all the debt in the US? Let's be clear, the whole US economy has been fueled by debt for the last 30 years. So, as always, very difficult to forecast long-term future here, but in the short term, in relation to China, I don't have any concern whatsoever. And that's why publicly we said that we are cautiously optimistic about China, just to hedge our bets for obvious reasons.
JS, we have one over here. Ian's got that. Then Richard, you've got one here, and I think there's a few here after that.
Hi, Jess. My name is Ben Moine. I'm from Davidson's Accountants. I just want to ask, China is a very important market for Rio Tinto. Do you think that since they're pivoting away from a manufacturing-driven economy to a consumption-driven economy, and Rio Tinto is producing mainly iron ore, do you think you should be ramping up your copper production and maybe diamonds as well to focus on the consumption side, or you stick with iron ore?
Thank you for the question. From a strategic standpoint, the primary driver for us from a Rio standpoint is about the quality of the assets. What we really want is to have a portfolio of world-class assets. So what it means in practical terms is we will not grow our copper business or aluminum business for the sake of it. We have a portfolio, as you mentioned, which is heavily weighted toward iron ore today. But looking forward, the primary driver will be the quality of the assets. Yes, we have a pipeline of growth option in copper, starting with Oyu Tolgoi. We have other options, but we will continue to strengthen the portfolio, primarily driven by the quality asset and not pursue a market share target in some commodities for the sake of it. Now, the second part of your question about China is, the truth of the matter, China accounts for 50% of the market, more or less, right? So longer term, I don't have any doubt that, Southeast Asia, India, Africa will pick up the baton, but not in the short term. So in the meantime, the only thing we can do is to make sure that our business case is very resilient, that we have world-class assets, we have a world-class balance sheet, and making sure we have the right product and we have close proximity, close relationship with the customers to make sure that we have the right engagement model. We're spending a lot of time in China. We have a good team over there. I'm spending a lot of time with the team over there. Am I concerned in the short term? No, I'm not. For the reason I just mentioned, I believe that China will continue to grow, albeit at a slower rate in the foreseeable future, and we'll make the most of it. So to wrap it up is, China will continue to be a key player for the coming years. We need to acknowledge this point, and that's why one of the points I made today is we need to think, when we think about China, we need to look at it as a partner, and I think that's very important. I understand that, in an Australian context, sometimes people have some concern about China, but let's be clear. We need people to buy our products, and whatever, like it or not, China will account for 50% plus of our revenue for the medium and long term for the entire industry. So we have to work with China, partner with China in a smart way. That's the only thing I can say today. But I don't want anybody to leave this room thinking that we are concerned about China. We don't have any concern about China today. As a shareholder, remember our largest shareholder is China. As a customer, more than 50% of our turnover in China, and as a supplier as well.
Okay. Now, Richard has a question here. Then you've got a question with Sonali, and Richard, after that, there's a few questions over here. If you could join us. Thanks, Ian. I think it's Sonali. No, Richard.
Samuel Hodgetts from RMIT University. Hopefully my question's a little bit easier for you to answer, JS. Now, thank you very much for your time today. As students heading into the mining industry in the future, what technologies and innovations do you see as being the most important for us to know and understand?
That's going to be an easy answer. Is really what we call big data. We need to understand better. So, sorry, I phrase it in a different way. We need to build capable process and to be in control. And today, we've made good progress, but we still don't collect enough data. We don't have enough smart system to optimize the way we operate. Our systems, our performance, if you look at it, is very inconsistent. There is a lot of variability. So anything in relation to enabling a better control, enabling having capable process and being in control by having access to more data, having more software and intelligence in that space is going to make a massive difference in the short and medium term.
Okay. Ian, over here. Richard, could you make your way over here? There's some questions. Thanks. Sonali?
Sorry, Sonali Paul from Reuters. Right here. Hi, JS. I have a three-part question. You recently sold your stake in the Simandou mine, and I was just wondering, when do you expect to receive the first installment of the payments from Chinalco? And are you concerned that, you know, production from Simandou is going to enter an oversupplied iron ore market?
Well, that's going to be an easy answer. This one is, first of all, we have to close the deal first. What we signed a few weeks ago is a non-binding head of terms. So when we close the deal, I'll come back to you with a better answer.
Hi, Jamie Smith from the Financial Times. A question about the Guinea controversy, which you've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. Guinea is not the only developing country in which Rio operates. Have you done a thorough review in the other projects that you're operating in developing countries to ensure there are no questionable payments in those places and in those projects? And secondly, a question about corporate culture. Do the Guinea payments point to a wider problem in Rio's corporate culture? And what steps are you and your chairman doing to address that? Thank you.
Only two questions. Yeah, I expected the question on Guinea for obvious reasons. You know, and I'll try to address the two questions in one go here. I've been in the chair for 5 months, and I spent a lot of time on the ground. And wherever I've been, I've met some outstanding people. And that's why the recent events related to Simandou have been very challenging for us. We cannot say any more than what is included in our public statements, as it is now with the relevant authorities. But what you need to know is the following. I take integrity and our code of conduct very, very seriously. For me, it's absolutely non-negotiable. We must do the right thing wherever we operate. And that's where I will leave the answer for today.
David Stanger from Bloomberg News. Nice to see you. There we go. You talked a little bit about some of the potential implications from a Trump presidency earlier, but obviously the US, I think last year, was the second largest generator of revenue for Rio. So, I mean, what are the potential benefits you see from a Trump presidency? We've seen him already say car manufacturing, the steel sector will be a priority in the first 100 days. What are the kind of things you anticipate as potential benefits?
As you said, the US is the second largest market for us. We have lots of operation over there. It's early days. From a Rio standpoint, you know, we don't do politics, so we work with whoever is in power. As soon as the Trump administration is in place, we will engage in DC with them. There could be some benefits. You know, we have a significant growth pipeline in the US, resolution in Arizona with our friend of BHP. I'm sure we have a few BHP friends in the room. I had hoped we had a few friends of BHP in the room. On a more serious note is we've got resolution. We have a pipeline of exploration in the US. And as we know that the permitting process in the US is very, very slow, very well structured, but very slow. And I have to say, if the Trump administration intention is to cut through red tapes, there could be some significant benefits for all of us, both in terms of demand in country and in terms of permitting in order for us to build some new world-class assets. But as I said, you know, it's early days. I don't think he's got a cabinet fully lined up yet. And as soon as he's got his administration in place, then we will engage with them and see what it means for us. So I'll come back to you on a regular basis, I guess.
Okay, we've got time for two more questions. Ian, you've got one there. When you finish, because you've still got the microphone, would you move to table 28 where John Jury wants to ask a question? But first, there's a question here.
Nassim Kadem from Fairfax Media. I thought it was really interesting that you talked about the mining industry's failure to connect with society over the past 15 years. And presumably the latest corruption charges might make that task a little harder. So is there anything else that you think that the company can do to protect its reputation?
I think, and back to what I said in the speech is, the mining industry has a challenge. The big corporate have a challenge in many, many countries. I think we need to go back to basics. We need to be able to explain to the local communities what the benefits we are providing. But we need to do it in English that people understand. Because if I step back, one of the challenges is we speak in corporate English and it doesn't resonate with people anymore. At the end of the day, we need to win the hearts and minds of our local communities. Without that, we will not be able to build new mines and so on and so forth. So to answer your question is, a big piece of work for us is to engage with our communities in plain English to make sure that they understand the benefits of the jobs we create, they understand the benefits of the local procurement, they understand the benefits of the tax we pay and so on and so forth. I don't think it's rocket science, if I may, but it's fair to say that we have not done it in a very effective way. And therefore, I think there is a need for us to step up our game. And in this context, the ICMM is going to run a pilot for the next 2 years. We've agreed in London, when was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, to spend some $1 million in order to see how we can improve our communication in some specific areas as a pilot. And then if the pilot is successful, then the intention will be to roll it across the world. License to operate are make or break issues for us. As I said, if we can't win the hearts and minds of the people, of our communities, we're going to have a big problem. So the sooner we tackle it, the better it is. But my key point here, and I truly believe we have a good story to tell, but we need to make it in a way that people understand, that resonates with the people. It's fair to say that we have not been good at it. So, the challenge and the opportunity is there.
One last question, just here, John Jury.
Yeah. Hi, J.S. John Jury. 2 questions, if I may. Firstly, you spoke very glowingly about Australia's future. What would it take to get you to move your corporate head office and base yourself here? That's one. Secondly, you spoke about how important integrity is with the company. I wondered, in view of recent events, what you've done within Rio and what changes, if any, you plan to make there.
All right, thank you. When you talk about Australia, I guess you're talking about Melbourne, is that correct?
We will shoot.
I don't want to sound negative here. The challenge we have as far as Rio is concerned, is that 80% of our shareholders today are in the UK and the US. We have a DLC structure, and only 20% of our shareholders are in Australia. I'm not saying it will never happen. That's not what I'm saying. But the question here is, and I think I touched it during the speech, is if we could have a stronger and larger financial market, equity market in Australia, potentially through partnership with Singapore or Hong Kong and so on and so forth, then the dynamic could change. Rio is around $60 billion of market cap, 16 in US dollars and 44 in the UK. And today, I'm not sure we would be able to place $44 billion. So the reality of it is, if Australia find a way to become, through the smart partnership we talked about it today, the financial center to support the mining industry, and if we can, as Rio Tinto, move or rebalance the DLC, whatever you want to describe it, then at some point in time, I could see a case for it. But as long as we've got 80% of our shareholders in the UK, then it's going to be very, very difficult. But longer term, anything can happen. The second question about integrity is, I could give you exactly the same answer I gave you a few minutes ago, so I think let's leave it here for the time being. I'm very clear. I take integrity very seriously. I take our code of conduct very seriously. For me, it's absolutely non-negotiable. We must and we will do the right thing wherever we operate. Thank you.
Thanks, JS. No longer a question and answer session normal, but it thoroughly was deserved. I'd like to call to the stage to propose a vote of thanks Patrick Smith, the CEO of AMC Consultants. Would you welcome Patrick to the stage?
Thank you, JS. I agree, this is a supportive crowd. Supportive of mining, supportive of mining and exploration companies, and supportive of the METS companies that work with them to the benefit of all of our companies and to Australia. You noted the importance of innovation and advocacy. To achieve great results, Australian mining needs to be innovative and to not settle for what was done in the past. We are on a journey, and I believe we should try to bring the Australian public along with us on the journey. There is a role for all of us to advocate for mining and to be passionate advocates for mining even when we are not in such a supportive crowd as we are here today. Members and guests, please join me in thanking JS for his presentation. It's pretty heavy. It's got a distinctive shape. I know what it is.
You know what it is? I think I've got a pretty good feeling as well. I don't want to break it.
I think it's pretty sturdy.
Wow.
Take the cover off it. Thank you.
No worries. Grab it. Have a seat. You've earned a seat. I'll get these people back. Yep.